Thank you so much for coming late in the day on Tuesday at Imbibe. I'm surprised we're not falling off of our chairs, but it's been, I don't know, pretty respectable so far. This 2:30 slot is like, it's where it goes either way for most people. So thank you so much for joining me. We've got a very fun session today. Let's give you a little bit of context. So, how to make sure sustainability isn't just a buzzword on your menu. Raise of hands if anyone is like running or working in a venue. Okay, cool. And everyone else coming from brands potentially? Okay, cool. So this is very much dictated towards the on-trade, but hopefully we can all glean something from it. Who the hell am I? I'm not an expert. I'm just somebody who's annoyed about sustainability and started researching it. So, this is me. I am Jack Sotti. I'm the director of brand advocacy for Rene Spirits. We just launched it, so it's not very well known. It's only about 8 weeks old. We'll talk about that later. I'm also a founder of a couple of businesses. I like to think of myself as an entrepreneur that hasn't made it yet, but they're all doing all right. I've got an e-commerce business called Kombucha Warehouse. I love a bit of booch, balances the booze. And I've got a cocktail bar and bottle shop in Camden Market called Esther. And I'm a passionate booze communicator. I like just talking, probably like the sound of my own voice. I do a little slot on Channel 4 Sunday Brunch, and hopefully I'll do more in booze communication because it's quite enjoyable. All you brands and PR people out there. Why the hell am I here? I don't know. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a sustainability consultant or anything like that, but this word, sustainability, is just like, you know, it's in our sphere, it's overwhelming us on a day-to-day basis. And in the booze industry, especially in bars, you know, it's very trendy to jump on that bandwagon from a venue point of view and from a brand point of view. Nobody is perfect, of course. Sustainable practices don't exist because we're trying to run commercial businesses, you know, so you can do your very best, like somebody here we'll be talking about very shortly. That's you. Yeah. But, you know, as bartenders, we're empowered to act on this growing climate crisis and do something. And, you know, as bartenders, we like to make drinks. And so we're like, okay, cool, well, I'm going to do sustainable menus. And realistically, it's a very low-impact move. There's so many more things you should be doing before your zero-waste menu. Because, for example, you know, the coffee thing. We make an espresso martini, we've got leftover coffee. People love to reuse the coffee grounds. It's great. There's loads of flavor in that coffee to reuse. You can do a second flush. Then you can do like some kind of third thing where you're cooking it down. You can extract it with ethanol. You can extract it with water. You're getting about 1 to 3% biomass out of that. But ultimately, people just still put it in the fucking bin. So you've wasted your time. You know, like, you know, the bars in central London, for example, very rarely compost. And so these zero waste menus, whilst they come from a very good place, are effectively greenwashing, which is like a nasty corporate term, but we're all guilty of it. And so I've been doing some research along with some of my peers, and just come to some assumptions. Like I said, I'm not the expert, but I wanted to share with you what we got to so far. Cool. So this is a man, he's sitting right there. Tim helped me with a lot of the research. We did a lot of this together, and he's got a fantastic brand we'll talk about called Avalon. Tim, I ripped this quote from an interview he did without his permission. Tim said at one point to somebody somewhere, the traditional sustainability model is about reducing harm. So we recycle our glass bottles and we reduce our CO2 emissions, but we need to do something that goes beyond that. So forget obsessing about plastic straws, which, don't get me wrong, is noble, or turning avocado seeds into orgeat, again, noble, but we're talking truly meaningful change. And so how can that look like in the industry? So what are we talking about? We're talking about greenwashing versus transparency. We're talking about banking, one of my favorite things that Tim brought up. We're talking about back bar sustainability, the brands that you stock, waste in general, which is what these zero waste menus tackle, but kind of a broader look on what waste in hospitality looks like. Ice machines, very important, and beef. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Beef is delicious. It's very bad. So we kind of covered this already, but yeah, greenwashing, we're all guilty of it. Bars and restaurants, they're just not sustainable business operations. There's no way we can kind of cloud our eyes or kid ourselves around that. We have to be honest and transparent in our communications with our guests, and it's going to pay dividends. So having a communication with your guests, what's going on, what are you trying to do, what do they want to see, that open dialogue is a really great form of PR. It's obviously a very hot topic. Guests care a lot about what you're trying to do. There's no point trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. So we're going to start off by having a little brand spotlight. We've had a couple of brands that are sponsoring. I say sponsoring, they're not paying any money, but they gave me some bottles, which is delicious. But these brands were picked because they're all trying to do something in their own unique way. I say they, Rene is mine. For transparency, I'm a minor shareholder of Rene, and we've been working on this for 2 years. This is a delicious gin that's a love letter to the region of Chablis. It's quite a niche brief. It's 100% grape-based spirit, which is made from all of the leftover must from the Burgundy region of France. It goes to a distillery in Beaujolais, they redistill it into a delicious grape spirit, and then we take that, we infuse it with some Grand Cru grapes as a botanical for those lovely floral top notes. We had a little bit of the Kimmeridgian limestone just straight out of the ground into the spirit. The winemakers think we're weird and nuts, but it adds a lovely mineral body. And then, your traditional gin botanicals. I'm very proud of it. It's the first commercial liquid I've ever made, and it's very delicious. So what are we trying to do at Rene? Like I said, we're 8 weeks old. It's been in the pipeline for a few years. We are not perfect, and there's ways of doing business that are better than what we're doing, but we're starting our journey, and we're talking about things transparently. So I like to think about it in like four levels: to minimize your impact, offset what you can't minimize, improve, look at how you can get better, not just say, okay, I've done my bit, let's move on. I've got my tagline for my greenwashing, and then we're going to continue business as normal. And then how we can contribute to give back. So, from our perspective, we're using a waste grape spirit, which doesn't take any additional farmland or have any additional impact on the land. We are under no illusions to how intensive the farming industry and the wine industry in France can be. And so we're looking through our charity partners at biodiversity charities that we can contribute to. We have zero plastic supply chain. We use mushroom packaging for our D2C. Again, it's a premium product. It's pretty spenny for consumers. It's £45 a bottle. It's glass. So, we could make significant improvements there. But all the carbon that we're expelling, we're offsetting. Now, with offsetting, that's a whole another talk that I'm by no means an expert on. There's different qualities of offset you can do. So for transparency, we're working with Climate Partner. They've got a number of different initiatives that you can pay money into that invest in sustainable industries. That can be from carbon capture to wind farms to tree planting, however that is, and that gives you carbon credits that helps you offset what you're doing. Last but not least, we partnered with a distillery up in Lincolnshire who are a solar power distillery. They are carbon neutral. So we're trying to just pick each challenge as it comes and just make a little impact. But we're 8 weeks in. We can do better. We will do better. That's where we're at. In terms of offsetting, we talked about the Climate Partner improvement. We're working with Berlin Packaging, who we're on their stand today. They are working on a carbon neutral glass offering. It's a unique way they're firing the furnaces using natural gas and recycling with heat exchangers. It's definitely not as good as paper or lightweight options, and it's definitely not as good as large format containers, but still making little bits of impact here and there. And then finally contributing, we're just signed on the dotted line for being 1% for the planet. It's a fantastic organization that pairs corporate companies with sustainable charities around the world, and you're donating 1% of your revenue, not profits, to these charities to make sure that you have some kind of purpose in life as a business. This is Rene. So this is just for transparency. This is a Climate Partner certificate that we've got, that we've offset 178 1,000 kilograms of CO2 for our launch. We will need to continue working with these guys, so on and so forth. But transparency. This guy is very good with the transparency business. Tim's actually got a tab on his website that says transparency, and it's all blockchain linked. There is no hiding behind it. It's pretty fantastic. So we've got a cocktail coming out very shortly. We're not going to, I've just got some drinks here so you can taste these fantastic spirits. That is not a spritz, it's a picture of a martini. That's my fuck up, I'm very sorry. Great looking martini though. The spritz you're going to try is Rene, paired with some Chablis that the liquid was inspired with, a little bit of freshly foraged elderflower, a dash of Suze, a French bitter, and lengthened with soda. Oh, thank you. That's the spritz, it's delicious. So, that's enough about what I'm doing at the moment with brands. How can sustainability look in your bar? Well, there's kind of three main areas I like to kind of categorize it into. There's mise en place techniques. Mise en place, Anthony Bourdain says don't fuck with the mise. Mise en place means everything in its place. So it's all about preparation, cocktail prep, cocktail techniques, everything that goes into the liquid and the food and beverage that you're pouring. That's where the kind of zero waste menus would sit within that category. Then you've got wider community and food systems, how you're engaging with your local suppliers, what you're asking of your suppliers. Are you asking them to cut out the plastic? Are you utilizing waste from the cafe down the road? Are you sending your coffee grounds to the local allotment where they can do the composting on your behalf? Engaging with your community and food systems. And last but not least, by far the most important element is business operations. What can you do as an operator to do things better? This is just a... Of course I can. Yeah, I'd love to. So this is just a lovely quote from Juan Roca. He's one of the most famous chefs in the world, from the Roca brothers. He said, a lovely quote about his restaurant, about the whole world. Cuisine is connected to its environmental surroundings, its economic, cultural, and social environments as well. It's a natural relationship that, if properly cared for, it benefits all parts. As cooks, or in our case, bartenders, we have a responsibility that we can see as an opportunity to improve the lives around the globe. All these systems, natural, economic, social, cultural, they echo what we eat and drink. And so this is just a lovely little point that just talks about how everything is wonderfully connected, and we're exploiting, but we can operate in ways that gives back. So, what can we actually do to make an impact in our bars, aside from zero waste menus, which are great, by the way. They bring a lot of PR and attention to the issue. My favorite one, Tim's favorite one, change your bank. Money talks, baby. So this is very straightforward, guys. I mean, since the Paris Climate Accord in 2019, there's been trillions of dollars invested into fossil fuels and fossil fuel financing by big banks. So if you bank with HSBC for your business, everything else you do, mate, is just wasted. If you bank with Barclays, waste of fucking time. So it's kind of like an uphill battle. You think you're making an impact by changing your menu and reusing coffee grounds twice, but then your profits are going to the bank. Not only that, if you're working with Specialty Beverage, for example, great company, bank with Barclays. So all the money you're paying them is funding fossil fuels. This is a vicious cycle, and it's ingrained into our ecosystem. So making conscious choices about who you bank with. Now, how the hell do you know who's the good guys and who's the bad guys? This ain't easy as well, because for Rene, we're doing a fundraise with some big investors. There's not many non-fossil fuel intensive banks that can take that kind of capital securely. And so we're still struggling with that for transparency. And I want to talk to you about that, get some advice if that's all right. So what can you do? This is a fantastic resource called bank.green. It's the easiest thing to remember. You can type it into your phones now, so it's in your browsing history. You just type in your bank, and it gives you a score. So this is Barclays, the #1 in Europe for fossil fuel financing. It's got a little angry swearing emoji. Barclays is one of the world's biggest funders of fossil fuels. In the 7 years since the Paris Climate Accord, they've funneled $5.5 trillion into coal, oil, and gas. So it's just like, it makes you feel insignificant, but as an industry, we have a voice, we have a power. Jump on there, see who you're banking with, and make a change. That website also helps you do bank switching as well. Starling, Monzo, and Triodos. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, they're excellent banks to bank with. Cool. Pretty self-explanatory. Next up, ice machines. Let's chill on the ice machines like this guy. Don't do it. How many of you have got an ice machine in your bar? Yeah, of course. 2 ice machines. Are they cubes or crush machines? Cubes. All right. Most people don't have the crush machine. If they have a crush machine, they also have a cube machine. So cube machines, for the most part, are water-cooled machines. So they have a plate. The water runs over the plate and slowly builds up the cube as it freezes, and all the waste goes down the drain. And then you've got air-cooled, which are like flake, nugget, and crushed ice. That's a bit different. There's no waste water in that. So how much water do you guys think does it take to make like a kilogram of ice, do you think, in general? Shout out. How much water, by weight or by volume, I don't care. 1 kilo of ice. 20 liters. That's ballsy. Yeah, pretty much bang on. All right, fine. Yeah, so for 1 kilogram of ice, it requires 18 liters or 18 kilograms of water in a traditional machine, which is crazy. So just for context, because I'm fun, you know, over the course of 1 year, one machine wastes 164,000 liters of water just down the drain. If you extrapolate that across all the F&B establishments in the UK that aren't food trucks, 82,000 of them, and so 70% of them, which is just a figure I pulled out of my ass, I don't know, 70% of them will have an ice machine. That equates to, yeah, big old number, eh? 13 billion liters of water. It's just going. It's nearly as bad as Thames water, isn't it? It's pretty brutal. So, I mean, that's, as a business, as an industry, we're giving 13 million pounds, assuming it's 0.1 penny per litre of tap water. We're giving 13 million pounds of money, to the water companies that they're paying their shareholders, and don't get me started on that. So what the hell can you do? Because we need ice to run our businesses, right? This might be tiny. So the first thing is just have smaller ice wells. Sounds really silly, but how many of you in a bar has ice left in the ice well at the end of the night? Raise your hand. Yeah, sheepish hands, but yeah. Okay, and what do you do with it? Some people leave it. You know, the one thing I hate is when they like pour water on the ice to melt the ice so they can then clean the ice well. It's like wasting, oh my God, so bad. So have smaller ice wells. The Dead Rabbit's got famously small ice wells, so they're only using what they need. It requires like a bit more of a fit bar back, but you know, hashtag sustainability, baby, it's good for your health. Reusing old ice at the end of the night, you know, Happiness Forgets, kind of puts them into silicone molds, put a little bit of water in there, and makes all their columns and blocks out of it. It's not perfectly clear, but it's still utilizing a little bit more. You know, block ice only, not having an ice machine at all. Like, you know, if you have a chest freezer, they're much more energy effective. You can cut off nice clear blocks of your cocktails. All the cloudy shit you can use for shaking, a really great option there. But not realistic. Come on, you need cubes for your bar. Crushed ice, flake ice, nugget ice. Get an air-cooled ice machine. You know, creating a sour with crushed ice in a frappe fashion is actually quicker to shake and dilute and achieve optimum temperature than it is shaking on cubed ice anyway. So it's more efficient. If you want to take that one level further, you can then use a blender to control the dilution. So you don't need to shake at all. You get an order for 5 whiskey sours, you got to get 2.5 shakers for, and you're like, oh my God, I'm too old for that shit. Get a blender, put it all in there, weigh out 20% dilution as ice, blend it till you can't hear it anymore. Perfect dilution, no wastage. We're not talking about the energy efficiency of blenders. It's a slippery slope, isn't it? But that's another method. Shaking and dumping. Shake your cocktail, dump it out instead of pouring over fresh ice. I was always told in fancy cocktail bars, always pour over fresh ice because it looks nicer. Dave Arnold, the genius man from Booker and Dax who wrote Liquid Intelligence, he did some experiments and came to the conclusion that ice that has been shaken, because of thermodynamics and injecting energy, and I'm not a nuclear physicist, ends up a couple of degrees colder than ice from your ice well. So you're getting ice from your ice well about -1 degrees. Once you shake ice, it goes down to about -4, -5. So if you're shaking and dumping, sure, it's you get a few bits in there, but you're getting a colder drink. So it's actually a higher quality in terms of temperature. If you can maybe, some way filter out the shards, or maybe if you're topping it up with crushed ice anyway from your flake machine, you're getting a better quality drink that's colder. Switch off your machine 2 days a week. How many bars are open 7 days? Not many, right? Yeah, right, fine. Making all the money. But if you're not open 7 days, switch off your machine. It's going to give you a great opportunity to clean that sucker out, because I'm sure we've seen some nightmares in hospitality when those ice machines in high volume bars that just stay on, and then you get to the bottom and there's like the black, weird bacterial growth at the bottom. You don't want to see that. That's nasty. And finally, my favorite, pre-dilute your cocktails in advance and stick them in the freezer. I have a bar in Camden called Esther. We do have cubed ice, but we buy it from an ice supplier. We don't have an ice machine. We probably use cubed ice for about 10% of our drinks, like our highballs and whatnot. I would like to use blocks, so it's bloody expensive. But, for all of our stirred drinks, we have a small menu. They're all pre-diluted. They're kept in the freezer at -10 degrees. It's going to be colder than a stirred drink anyway, and you're not fucking around. It's quicker. Dilution is controlled. It's consistent. If anyone wants a sour or an espresso martini, we just have them in slushies. Definitely not like a traditional, but they're so delicious. You need to try them. We've got a dragon fruit colada on at the moment. Pretty good. Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. Pre-dilute. Next up, got beef. Don't have a cow, man. Yeah, a few Simpson references, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. This is the elephant in the room, or the cow in the room. We all know how intensive beef is, in particular, meat in general, but beef is a massive contributor. 80% of global agricultural land is devoted to livestock, whether that's grazing or growing the grain and food for that livestock. If all humans had the same meat-centric diet as the country of the US, so everyone in third world countries, everyone, even in the UK, we ate more meat, every hectare of habitable land would be taken up with meat production, and they'd still be 30% short. Like, it's mad. So it's just a complete waste of space, a waste of energy, a waste of resource. Don't get me wrong, I'm not vegetarian, I'm not vegan, I have tried both diets, I really vouch for both diets, but I'm also a realist. So since trying them out, so I know what I'm vaguely talking about, I've significantly reduced. And it makes you really enjoy that burger once a month when I go for it, that much more. But it is terrible to the environment. So how does that actually look? This is how thirsty is your food. These numbers are thousands, liters of water used to produce 1 kilogram of that food product. So for 1 kilo of beef, so 2 tomahawks, it takes 15,000 liters of water. It's fucking retarded, like 15,000 liters. So, next up are nuts. So we're not saying that, meat is the biggest polluter. I mean, it is. Nuts are, but you're not eating like a kilo of nuts compared to a kilo of beef. Then you've got the rest of the meats, sheep and goat's milk, meat, pork, chicken, eggs are on there. And then finally you get down to the non-meaty things, cereal grains. So for 1 kilogram of cereals, to make bread, you've got 1,000 liters of water. It's still quite intense. And lowest on the scale, of course, are delicious, healthy, vibrant, God's given vegetables, 322 liters per kilogram. So you can see where the big problems lie. This one is great for operators, because what can you do? Well, you can limit your beef options. You're going to save money. Meat is very expensive. We, as tastemakers in the top 10% of bars in the world who are coming to this kind of event, we set the trends. People come to us, we watch the trends events. We will really steer civilization, because when people don't want to cook for themselves, they go out. And if they see a very plant-centric menu on their, in their local pub, and they have more opportunities to try delicious plant-centric dishes, they're going to. And we're slowly going to make that change away from the disaster that we're getting to. You can also just limit the beef. If there's only one thing you can do, if you've got like a hamburger and a steak or something like that, take the steak off the menu. It's going to cost you too much money anyway. Do you know what I mean? Just make lovely changes and create alternatives. And don't list them separately. List them all within the same menu, delicious options all around. Oh, this one happens to be plant-based, this one happens to be meat-based. We really need to be switching over to either 100% plant-based menus or at least 50-50. Because at the moment, meat is ruling and is destroying our planet. I've never spoken publicly in this way about this subject properly, and I feel like I'm like becoming a bit of a zealot. I love it. And finally, yeah, Tim takes the mustard on that one. Don't get in a Uber with Tim after a few drinks on a night out and say you fancy a hamburger. Oh boy. Next up, sustainability on the back bar. So, you know, all of the efforts you're going to create delicious things, and then suddenly your whole bar, all your trade is made up from all these other brands. They've got their own agendas, their own sustainability credentials. And so it's very important you're aware of what they're doing, what their processes are, and what they're trying to do. Brands will like make or break your sustainability goals. You know, the big one is monocrops. Monocrops, you know, you've got all your grains, you've got agave, you've got grapes, you've got sugarcane. They're all monocrops, which are incredibly bad for biodiversity. So making sure you've got a really good mix of spirits in the back bar. We're going to talk about one in particular that really encourage biodiversity, very important. We're seeing a bit of an extinction level event at the moment on planet Earth. Poor supply chains, unsustainable brands. 20 to 30% of your capital expenditure is being spent on these brands. And so money talks again. This goes back to that. Make sure you know what you're stocking and what their initiatives are. You know, size matters. Large format containers are better. Kegs of beer, kegs of wine, eco spirits. Have you guys heard of eco spirits? Raise of hands if you've heard of it. Wow, we need to get more knowledge on eco spirits. Eco spirits are a fantastic organization that was set up by Proof and Company. They are creating booze comes in like 9-liter kegs, so it's a 9-liter keg of spirits that's refillable, and you bring it into your bar. And you just top up the glass bottles that you've got. Removing glass bottles from supply chain is like the number one thing you can do from a carbon point of view. They've got an incredible array of brands, from small independents like this one to some of the big boys as well. Eco Spirits are really making a big splash, and I'm really excited to see where they go. So large format containers or non-glass containers. So glass is a significant strain on the supply chain. Tim's bottle here is made from paper. He'll tell you more about it shortly, I'm sure. I know that Black Cow have got some fantastic refillable containers made from cartons, right? Which Dustin from Black Cow will tell you a little bit about that later. Like I said, like anything other than the heavy weight of glass, consumers still like being poured from glass, but there are trailblazing brands that are starting the transition, and consumers are being more open to it. Biodiversity we spoke about, very, very important. The monocrops are incredibly bad, not only biodiversity, but they require a lot to keep them going. They need a shit ton of pesticides, and they need a lot of artificial chemicals to grow them. And what's worse is that with those pesticides, you lose all your pollinators. You're seeing human beings having to hand pollinate groves of orchards. It's just terrible for the environment. So biodiversity from a crop point of view, fruit brandies is like the way to go. And last but not least, social purpose. Choose a brand that stands for something more than just making cash. I feel like any modern brand nowadays has to have something more. They have to have social purpose, which is a lovely segue into Avalon, this fantastic brand here. Have we got a spare mic going around? Sitting down off the job, chilling out, honestly. Come on. So Avalon is Tim's brand. Tim, this is Tim Everington Judge. We've been friends for a long time. Whatever you want, stand up. Yeah, why not? This is your moment.
Thank you.
Tell us about Avalon, Tim.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so many people for coming to listen to Jack rant on about beef. So Avalen is the result of what it looks like when you ask the question, what does the world's most sustainable spirit look like? If we put aside category and we go right back to the beginning with a blank sheet of paper and we say, what's the best raw material to make alcohol from an environmental perspective? Almost all of the spirits we drink, as Jack rightly mentioned, are made from industrial monocrops. And what we drink is dictated by the big corporates, so Diageo, Pernod, Bacardi, William Grant, Beam, etc. And they want us to drink the most profitable things. So cereal grains, incredibly cheap to make alcohol from. Sugarcane, incredibly cheap to make alcohol from. So molasses is waste. We said, from an environmental perspective, let's look at that. So we analyzed it on carbon emissions, biodiversity, water consumption, and pesticide and fertilizer use. And the traditional apples of Normandy came out on top. So we did the crazy thing and launched a Calvados. And nobody drinks Calvados apart from your gran at Christmas. Pours it on a cake and sets fire to it. But we wanted to be true to that mission, and we saw that Calvados is an incredible category that's long been neglected because it's quite expensive to make alcohol from apples. But today we are a climate positive brand, so we remove more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere than we emit from our production through the work of our incredible apple trees in the orchards. No offsetting required. The orchards are mosaic habitats, so rather than being a monocrop that is the enemy of biodiversity, we have 3 separate habitats within an orchard. So you have the trees, which form an artificial forest, and you have multiple different species of tree. We have the meadows in between the trees, so you've got grasses and wildflowers and all the biodiversity they bring. And then around the edges, you've got the hedgerows, which are great, rich sources of biodiversity. No artificial irrigation allowed, so unlike cereal grains or sugarcane or grapes, which require artificial irrigation. Interestingly, agave, no irrigation. So no water, so we have a very minimal water footprint. It only takes 1.2 liters of water to produce a single bottle of Avalen, which is 75 to 90% less than other spirits categories. And then finally, no pesticides or fertilizers are used in the production of our spirit. We don't add any sugar, we don't add any caramel, nothing at all is added to the liquid. So literally just made from apples and water. And we say made from nothing but apples, water, and thyme. And it also has a wild fermentation, so we're not adding any yeast into the product either. Certified B Corp, 1% for the Planet member, and just trying to kind of blaze a trail for sustainability within the industry that others like Renee and Black Cow can then kind of tread with us.
Fantastic.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Tim. Round of applause for Tim, everyone. Woo! How many of you have tried Avalen before? Cool, well, you've all tried it now. What do you think of that cocktail? Fantastic. So, yeah, I love Calvados. I love the flavor of our apple-y goodness, deliciousness. You haven't got one, have you? Oh, yeah, I'll get one out. Kathy, can we get a cocktail for Tim, please? Thank you. So, what you guys just tried was a little twist on a delicious sour, the best sounding drink ever. So we take Avalen and we make this little tree honey. Tim actually educated me. I thought, save the bees is a big mantra of what they do to give back. I thought honey was really sustainable, better than sugar. Turns out honeybees are now a monocrop as well because people are trying too hard and they're forcing pollination on their crops. So, Tim, did you mention about your bees? I wasn't listening. Okay, so Avalen also are trying, for their 1% for the planet charity contributions, they're supporting 25,000 individual. What's that? Okay, they donate 2% of the turnover to the Bumblebee Conservation Trust. Aside from honeybees, there's 25,000 species of wild bee that exist, and honeybees are kind of taking over and destroying their habitat. So honey, which was originally what I thought was good, was actually getting now a little bit more of a monocrop itself. And so we've replicated the aroma and flavor of honey by taking apples themselves, cooking the juice down, and creating this wonderful apple caramel that gets this kind of nice honey notes. And then we age that caramel syrup in a bottle that's coated in shea butter, which is a tree-based wax. Use it for your skin, but it adds a lovely kind of woody flavor to it. And then we add a touch of peach brandy, shake it up with some lemon, And it's delightful, right? It's one of my favorite drinks. Delicious sour. Cool. Thank you. Next up, waste. We should talk about waste, of course. Can't be sustainability if we're talking about taste. You know, this is Mr. Burns recycling. Waste, very important, but minimization before we get to that point is more. So you've heard the mantra, reduce, reuse, repair, recycle. Most people don't realize that that's actually in order. Recycle being the last thing you should be doing. Reduce your consumption, reuse what you can, repair it when it breaks, and eventually, if you have to, recycle it. So here we're talking about two very clear waste streams. We're talking about organic waste, and then kind of like single-use plastic, card, glass. Organic waste is very important to talk about because these single-use menus, you know, you'll see them reusing organic waste a few times to get as much flavor out of raw materials, but then they'll just put it in the bin. You know, you can use coffee multiple times, but it still goes in the bin. Organic waste is decomposing in an uncontrolled fashion in a landfill, produces methane. Methane is 80 times more potent than CO2, and an incredible contributor to climate change. And so composting is very important, and we'll talk about that. Finally, I got some fun stats here. UK hospitality produces about 3 billion kilograms of plastic per year as waste, and 6 million kilograms of glass. It's pretty obscene. What's that? 600 million glass bottles a year. I mean, it's obscene. So making changes where we can is very important. So we got a bit of a problem. We're turning this like big waste monster in our cities. A couple of fun facts for you here. Only 1% of coffee's biomass is used to make that lovely espresso. That's fucking madness. 1%. It gets extracted. So use it again, extract as much flavor as you can, but still, you're not going to get to a very high point. There's so many nutrients in that coffee. It's a rich, nitrogen-rich fertilizer. Make sure you're sending it to a place where it can be properly decomposed and it's going to add value back into the earth. We produce 199 million kilograms of food waste in the UK, not just hospitality, but everyone. 30% of all the food we produce is wasted. It's a sickening statistic. And that increases to 40% in restaurants because, you know, people's eyes are bigger than their belly, so on and so forth. And food waste is responsible for 10% of all man-made emissions. So food production and ultimate waste, 10% of man-made emissions. And so what can you do? The number one thing you can do is compost. And most bars don't have this facility. But there are waste management strategies in place with suppliers where you can get your food waste somewhere where it needs to go to actually add richness back into the soil. Soils around the world currently are dying. They're incredibly lacking in biodiversity. The microbiome of our Earth is just like dead. Have you guys seen that fantastic Netflix documentary? What was it called? What's it called again? Kiss the Earth. Kiss the Ground, yeah, with Woody Harrelson, yeah. Have you seen that? Kiss the Ground. He's talking about how we just take from the earth monocrops, grow, artificial fertilizers, and in the end, after like a decade of doing that in one spot, that land is dead. And you see like the Dust Bowl of the of the Midwest in America. There's nothing going back. So if we can just divert, if we have to waste all this 40% food waste, send it back to compost, enrich our soils. What else can you do? You can understand your waste by keeping a log. It sounds quite pedantic, but keeping a log of what's going in the bin, you can then make changes because you understand that waste is not just a waste of resources. As an operator, it's a waste of money, complete waste of money, and we all know how tight margins are in this game. A really easy win, which I tried in my bar and nobody even noticed, is just reduce portion sizes by 10%. No one cares. Keep the same price. So what? 10%. It's 10% savings, less food wastage. Like, you just trial it out. If someone complains, fine, make a change. But just make that change. You'll be saving yourself 10% of your spend on F&B. Work with your community to reduce waste. So if you've got these coffee grounds, send them to the allotment. You've got that trash tiki talk, you know, from back in the day. Ian Griffiths and Kelsey Ramage doing amazing things, reusing all of the ingredients as much as possible to extract value, financial and flavor value. but making sure ultimately you're still composting. You know, I've seen some nightmare stuff about like guest bartenders that are doing sustainable menus. One of them, I won't name names, but honestly, it was like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. One bartender was using the byproduct from his restaurant's avocado guacamole dish, the seed. Like, this seed is great, it's a thermal insulator, so he's putting it in the freezer and using it as like an ice block, which looked really cool. So this is avocado ice block. But then the cocktail was selling so much that he ended up just having to like cut open avocados to get the seeds, and didn't make the call at one point, and maybe we should stop this. And it got to a head where he did an event elsewhere where there was no avocado on the menu, and literally at the end, like, I'm not going to name a name, but his bar back said, "What should I do with all this avocado?" And he was like, "Just put it in the bin." And it's like, this is like one example of hundreds I've seen with touring guest shifts for sustainable, low waste, zero waste menus. Just use your common sense. People are okay if you're like, "Oh, I can't make this drink because we've run out and it's on the season," whatever that is. Anyway, a really important one is collective buying power with suppliers. If your fruit and veg comes in like plastic packaging, or it's turning up in plastic, you know, in single-use cardboard or whatever that is, you know, that one buyer, that one, you know, greengrocer has got thousands of customers. You know, we've got WhatsApp groups, we've got London bartender exchanges. We have ways of talking to one another. We can say we refuse to accept this produce unless you're employing single-use capabilities. Our money talks, collective buying power. Anyway, and last format, booze, baby. Talked about it. So, a really fantastic brand I want to talk about now in terms of waste reduction, not something that we're doing in the on-trade, but at home in the distillery, is Black Cow Vodka. How many people, show of hands, have tried it? Fantastic. Oh, quite a lot. That's good. It's pretty freaking delicious, eh? So I know we spoke about beef and how it's bad, and this is a cow-based product. But I think it's very important to know that these things aren't going to go away overnight. There's a lot of waste from the dairy industry, and we have to find ways of utilizing that. We have fantastic Dustin over here from Black Cow. Hey, Dustin. Dustin's going to talk a bit more about what they're doing from a farming perspective to operate as sustainably as possible and give back to the community. But just kind of a little snapshot here. There's about 189 million tons of whey, the byproduct of cheese production, produced every single year. Half of it is being used in digesters to create like bioethanol and other bits and bobs, but a lot of it comes from small cheese makers that just doesn't have the facility to turn that into something useful. In the whey, there's loads of lactose, which is a deliciously fermentable sugar, and these guys have done something with it. So can we get a microphone over to Dustin to give you a little bit of context about that? And you can hear about Black Cow's incredibly positive practices. Thank you.
I'll come over here with you.
Yeah, come on.
Thanks for
cocktails as well?
Yeah, we got some delicious cocktails. Thanks, Jack.
Pleasure.
Thanks for reminding me I need to change my bank as well. I bank with Barclays, so that ain't good. But yes, Black Cow. Black Cow is made from the whey of milk, or of actual cheese. So it's a milk-based product. If you're vegan, you know, which is a very hot topic at the moment, you cannot have it because it comes from whey, and there's no hiding that. There's no getting around it. We are what we are. So what we do is when the whey separates from the curds make a cheddar cheese, which is absolutely delicious. It's crystally, crumbly, 15-month matured cheddar. And then the whey is the naughty child of the dairy industry. So smaller creameries cannot afford to get rid of it in a sustainable, environmentally friendly way. So there's been some dirty tactics to get away with it. It's either reintroduced into the water system, which is totally illegal and terrible for the planet. And the only ones that can really afford to get rid of it in a good way is the big guys. So what do? We collect the whey, and we add a yeast, and it ferments the milk sugars within the whey, which then ferments into a 2.5% beer, and we are then left with our substance to distill alcohol. And then we take, I didn't see the bin there. And then we take that, we distill it 3 times up to 96% and 90 on the third, and filter it 3 times through charred coconut husks, which are also reused from the coconut industry. And from there, you're left with the most delicious, smooth vodka because it's a single ingredient.
Hey, listen, this is not about the brand, all right?
Oh, sorry. This is sustainable talk, right.
It is delicious.
So what we do on the farm is they're grass-grazed cows, kind of like what this gentleman said before. We look after the farmland. We have rivers. We've built lagoons to keep the nutrients in the grass. There's bees everywhere. We've got hedgerows. We've got wildflowers. Everything we do is to look after the environment around us. We've got solar panels for the distillery. Minimal plastic, if any at all. Recyclable bottles. We do 5-liter jugs. We also did some stuff with the eco spirits as well. So basically, everything we do, we're trying to cut down on waste. And also, we don't use any water. All the water is from the whey, so we're not extracting another water source from the world that we already haven't.
Fantastic. And out of curiosity, 2.5% beer, once you distill that, you've probably got a lot of byproduct from the distillation. That's like non-sugary whey. What do you do with that?
We have well, I don't actually know, to be honest with you. I could make something up right now.
I'm sorry.
It's all about transparency, so
yeah, good.
I'm not going to lie to you.
But you'll find out for the next time.
I'm going to find out for next time.
Yeah, I mean, once you're taking sugars out of things are becoming a lot easier to dispose of. Thank you. How long have I got? No more time? That's good. We're done now. Yes, and what you guys just tried, so this was me trying to utilize a lot of waste whey. There's a fantastic little cheesemaker in Tottenham who throws his whey down the drain, which is illegal, but he didn't realize, apparently. Anyway, so I take his whey, and I use that as the dilution in the cocktail you just had. Sorry, Tim, I know you're vegan. I tried to tell you, but you're already drinking it. So the whey is the dilution. It adds body, mouthfeel, texture, a bit of acidity as well. We've got Black Cow Strawberry, which is infused with odd strawberries that can't go to the supermarket from a local farm.
Yes, so our neighboring farm has strawberries. They grow strawberries, and they're misshapen or wonky, and just because they don't look good doesn't mean they don't taste good, and it's still taking all that effort to grow them. So we simply bruise them and infuse them for 4 days and add nothing to it and filter it out. So again, using another waste product with another waste product. So from zero waste to wonderful taste is what we like to say.
So essentially, the strawberries and cream Negroni. What do you think? That's like one of my favorite drinks at the moment. It's like bang tidy. So, yeah, I mean, in summary, we can do a lot. But if you're only to take away one thing, it's just jump on that website, check out what your bank is up to, and divert your money away from fossil fuels.